Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another build. Now today I wanted to do the interior of the new Flow V8 Cafe that we got in the premium shop this week. Now I do want to do the exterior of this build, however I don't know if anyone saw my live stream on update day, but my V8 Cafe kind of crafted time bending furniture pieces are completely glitched. They do not work. I have sent in a ticket into Gameloft and I'm still waiting to hear back, but they currently are broken. I've tried crafting more and the same glitch happened. So unfortunately I cannot do an exterior build for this because I really wanted to use those at V8 Cafe kind of gas stations, and unfortunately I can't. So unless I can figure out that issue, I cannot do an exterior, which is really sad because I have like an idea in mind of what I wanted to do. But nevertheless, I wanted to do the interior of this build. Now I decided I wanted to make this a kind of motel, so I wanted to make it like a motel you check in. It has a diner, it has a games room, and it has a like bedroom room you'd stay in, very similar to those that you see in Disney parks. So let's get started. When we first go in, the first room is going to be kind of like just a reception area where you check in, so it's going to be very simple. But in here I did play around with the wallpaper and the flooring for quite a while to try and figure out what kind of theme I wanted to go for. Now obviously in here I did want it to be very bright and colourful, but I didn't want the walls and the floors to kind of take away from all the furniture I was going to use, so I did have to play around with it for quite a while before I figured out what I wanted to use. But I did go in and start placing in all the furniture I knew I was going to be using for the build, and started figuring out how to rearrange everything to create this kind of restaurant kind of check-in area and figure out how it was all going to look. Now my whole theme in this build overall is I really wanted it to feel like kind of a hotel you'd stay in at a Disney park. So I kind of wanted to use all the different elements of what you would see in those buildings, and obviously this one I wanted to make slightly more kind of V8 Cafe themed, so cars themed, but also have a really nice kind of like modern tech edge to it. So I used a lot of Wreck-It Ralph items and a lot of kind of items that were just very bright, very colourful. And as we go through, you will see I kind of cater each room to be able to be functional, to be a hotel. So I wanted it to feel like a Disney Parks hotel. I do want to have this building probably potentially be in my theme park I build at some point. So I felt it just made sense to have it be a motel. So I kind of used some of the L-shaped counters to create kind of a check-in area with a kind of desk with a computer and a register and all those things to kind of make it seem as though this is where you would go in and check in before you go to the 3 other rooms coming off of this room. Now as we head into the next room, this is going to be the bedroom. So obviously in a normal motel this would be there'll be loads of different bedrooms that are all different themes for different families, different size groups. You'd have some that are just like double beds, some that have got kids bunk beds. There would be a variety, however, obviously in this building you can only really make a very limited amount. So I decided to make one that had kind of like a parent's bed and a kid's bed, and kind of managed it to kind of figure out the layout of how I wanted to do it based on what you'd get in a normal hotel room, what is kind of synonymous with Disney parks hotel rooms. So I kind of went in and started placing out the furniture I knew I wanted to use, and use this really nice red striped wallpaper as it really fit the theme, and it brings a really nice red glow to the room, which just made it feel really cozy. I also placed lots of the Art Deco posters from the premium shop along the walls. I wanted them to feel like they had kind of like Disney movie posters up in the room, and I just felt like they worked really well because they are all the same size and style, so they just looked really symmetrical on this wall, and just I thought looked really, really sweet here. And I then kind of figured out how I wanted to do the layout around this. Now once I placed everything out, I started rearranging it. Obviously in here for the kids' bed, I did debate using the Wanderer bunk beds we have from the premium shop set. However, I ended up going with the Cars bed because it only was right to use that in here considering it is the V8 Cafe. So I used that for the child's bed, and I kind of decorated around it with some items to kind of make it clear that this is the kind of child section of the room. Obviously if we could divide rooms to have kind of different sections, it would have been a lot easier. However, I did my best to kind of use the furniture I had to divide everything. I created a little like living room area at the front using a Toy Story TV stand we got from the deluxe edition, and created just this mini little living room space, as well as an entry table that I put lots of items on and put a really nice glowing starlight above. I then kind of figured out the layout to make sure I could fit in a couple of windows, and then I started figuring out where I wanted the kind of parents' bed to go. And I wasn't sure what bed to use for this at first, but I do end up using the pallet bed, the woolly one, just because I felt like it looked really rustic in here and just also was kind of like different from the other beds we have. So I just felt it made sense, and I rearranged everything else around that and started putting in the final few furniture items. Once the bedroom was complete, we moved on to the back room, which I decided was going to be like a games room. Now, when you stay in hotels, especially as a kid, when they're like family hotels, you always have a space where people can kind of hang out and play games, and there's a space kind of for the kids. So I wanted to create something like that in here. Now, I didn't want it to just be kind of like a little kid's toy room. I wanted it to have a balance, so it felt like it was for all ages. So I wanted to use a combination of some of the kind of like little kids toys that we have in the game, as well as some of the more tech toys, like a lot of the arcade machines, to kind of give it this really kind of variety in here so all different ages could enjoy it. So I went in and started placing in the items I knew I wanted to use, and figuring out where to kind of put everything, because I knew there was a lot I wanted to pack in here. I did use the wallpaper from the previous Lovely Monsters Star Path, and I did originally put in just some plain wood floor in here. I do go in at the end and change this to one of the like puzzle style floors. It just fit much better in here, and I added in a couple of windows before rearranging everything that I knew I had already placed out. Now originally I did want to include this really cute little like TV watching station over in one of the corners, which you do see me kind of play around with and move around. I do eventually end up removing this. However, if you are missing some of the items that I did use in here and you're kind of looking for something to replace that space with, that is something that I thought would have looked really cute in here. You get the TV from one of Mike and Sully's quests. Obviously the little like cushion chairs are from the Belle Starlight bundle, but you could easily just swap them out with some other kind of chair, or you could always just use a rug and have it be that people would sit on the rug and watch the TV. So that is something that I do end up removing. However, I feel like if you are looking for something to fill the space, that is a really good option to go for. Now, as I'd put in every piece of furniture in here, I realised obviously that the spacing was quite difficult. Obviously I knew going into this that there was a lot I wanted to include, so I knew that spacing would be something I'd have to play around with. However, I do get to this point and I think, oh no, what am I going to do? But I do start rearranging everything and figuring out a better spot for everything to go in. I didn't want to sacrifice too much. I'd already sacrificed the little TV station area, so I didn't want to sacrifice much else. So I did figure out what would work best in here, the best places to put everything, and managed to get everything sorted in here. Something else I really loved including was the new maps we get from the Disney Parks event. So if you're looking at these and don't recognize them, they are from those Dreamlight quests. So if you haven't done those yet with all the cupcakes and everything, that is how you get those, and that was kind of the end of that room. Now moving on to the final room, this is going to be our diner. Now in here I knew I obviously wanted to include like a diner space, however I wanted it to feel very kind of synonymous for one you'd get in a hotel, but have a really nice retro feel. So I knew straight away I wanted to use these particular items. So I knew I wanted to use this kind of tiled blue and turquoise floor with the green walls, and I wanted to match it to the Ratatouille kitchen set. Now I don't use this very often, even though I love it, purely because there's not many functional items that go with it. Like there isn't a matching fridge, there isn't a matching everything. So I did kind of figure out how I wanted to do it based on this space. However, I knew in here it would just look really sweet. It would really make it feel like an old school retro diner that you would have got in kind of like the 70s and 80s, which was the look I was going for in here. So I decided to put those in and figure out the layout. I didn't want the kitchen to be too big because I wanted there to be a lot of seating space in here to make it seem as though it made sense that people staying at the motel would all be able to come and sit in here and have their meals as you would in a hotel. And I started figuring out what kind of items I wanted to use in here. I wanted to use a lot of posters and lights on the walls to make it seem kind of like an old school Hollywood one at the same time. Similar to like when you go to Hard Rock Cafe, if any of you have gone. Obviously they have those throughout my country and other countries, but they do also have them at Disney parks, and they have so many posters on the walls of old school movies and artists and things like that. So I wanted to have that feel in here, so I did include a lot on the walls and kind of figured out how I could coordinate everything together as I figured out the layout for the kitchen. Now for seating in here, I knew the main kind of areas would be these diner booth tables. If you do not have them, they are from a premium shop bundle. They're called the Wanderer bundle. If you don't have them and they do come back around, I would highly recommend them. You get some really lovely items in here and a whole kitchen set and everything. I didn't end up using the kitchen set in here just because I really wanted to use the Ratatouille one, and that is part of the base game, so you can access that whenever. But the diner booths are very much worth it, and I knew I wanted this whole side of the wall to be those, as they just obviously fit the really nice retro theme, and the colours worked perfectly to match everything else in here. And I do go in and add another table at some point as well. Now, as well as the tables in here, I did want to include some bar stools. These ones, the Wreck-It Ralph ones, obviously just match perfectly to the theme in here. So I did use those just to give some additional seating, and I can kind of decorate the bar as we go forward to kind of fit who would sit here and enjoy like a quick drink or something like that. And then the main dining tables would be for people having actual meals, and so putting those in made me be able to see exactly how the counter was working, what space I had to decorate around this, and how to figure out the rest of the layout of the kitchen to make sure I could kind of fit in everything I wanted to. I did end up adding a fridge and a stove just to kind of tie it all together and make it look like a functional kitchen, and I then rearranged the walls to kind of figure out how I wanted the rest of the layout to go. I wanted it to just be very simple in here, but also bring a really nice kind of bright vibe to fit the rest of the room. And I then started rearranging the wall above the dining tables. Obviously I used a lot of these neon signs, which are Wreck-It Ralph, as they're just perfect in this whole build in general. They just work so well. And I used another one of the star signs to kind of put above there, just to make this wall a really kind of eye-catching and kind of main central focal point for the room. So this is the final build. I will take you in first into the reception area. Obviously, as you can see, this is just a very simple room, but it automatically brings you into the kind of vibe that this whole building is going to be. So we have the check-in desk. I probably will put a mannequin in here at some point, but for now we just have this little check-in desk area with a register and a computer and a sign-in book, everything you would need to kind of check in to your hotel. And then on the walls I just used some of the Wreck-It Ralph fountains and some of the bamboo shoots just to give it this really nice kind of desert vibe, similar to that of Cars, where it's kind of like a barren area. And as we head into the right, we go into our bedroom space. Now in here, as you can see, it's very red and very kind of bright, and I just love how it looks in here. Obviously in the back right corner we have the kind of like parents' bed essentially, where it is a bit more kind of simple and it just caters to them really well. We have the little mini kind of living room space where their obviously families would hang out. I used the modern partition dividers to kind of separate the room a little bit. Over in the other corner we have the entrance desk, which I just included a lot of the popcorn buckets that we can now craft, as well as a trophy and lots of other things on there. We have a little wardrobe area with the poster wall behind, and then we have the kids' little bedroom area, which I love, which has the Cars bed and just lots of toys and stuff around for them to use. Heading out of there into the back room, we have obviously our games room. Now, as you can see, I did change the floor in here, but I absolutely love how this room turned out. I think I managed to get the balance between the different age groups that would use this room. I used a lot of the arcade games, which obviously just brings such a nice vibe in here. I wanted it to feel quite open so that you can actually access everything, but at the same time really cozy, really bright, and just make it seem though as kids would actually want to hang out in here. I used some of the new items from the Bonnie's toy bundle in the corner, which is kind of an area for younger kids. I just love how that looks with the maps above it. These new maps are great, so if you haven't got those yet, make sure you do those quests. And then we obviously just have the computer gaming station at the back for the older kids to use. As we head out of there, we go into our final room, which is obviously our diner room. Now, I love the diner. I love how open it is in here. But as you can see, I've obviously just put some food all over the counter, so some drinks and some cakes. And then on the tables, I have put a lot of kind of like main meals and things like that for people to enjoy. All the lights on the walls just glow really beautifully and give it this really nice old school Hollywood style. I wanted it to feel as though this was somewhere you would actually go in a Disney park to have a meal, just on a much smaller scale, and obviously included a lot of the retro posters around the room as well, and additional seating in the corner to kind of tie everything together and finish it off. So here are some shots of the final build. I really enjoyed doing the interior of this. I kind of got this house and I was like, do I want to make it a kind of like multi-room diner, so it's just this huge kind of dining area? Do I want to include other rooms in here? And I actually decided making it an actual functional motel just worked so well in here, and I feel like once I can kind of finally decorate the outside of the building and tie it into the rest of the biome, it will work really well in a theme park space. I'm just hoping at some point that my craftable gas stations are fixed, or there's a way for me to kind of get them sorted so I can actually do an exterior build for this house, as I really love how it looks. But for now, the interior is just how I wanted it to be. I really enjoyed creating it and kind of going through Scrooge's catalogue, and it took me a long time to figure out exactly what I wanted to use. I did have to go back to Scrooge's multiple times during this build and figure out everything I wanted to use in here, and just let my creativity kind of just take the lead on this, and it ended up better than I thought it would. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down below what you think of the V8 Cafe. Again, I apologize I can't do an exterior of this build. However, if you do want to see one anyway without having the gas station, do let me know down below. Obviously it is a big loss to not be able to have that, but if you do still want to see it, then let me know. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much for all the support on the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.